Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter, where we go live 2 times per week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time with the theme of Mental Health Mondays, and Wednesdays, which is today at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the theme of Warrior Wednesdays. And as a reminder, if you haven't subscribed yet, and you happen to be watching this, whether it is on YouTube or another platform where you can subscribe so that you don't miss another episode, make sure you mash down that button because I promise you, the guests that I have, the stories that are told are absolutely amazing and you don't want to miss out. So make sure you subscribe, you follow. Maybe you're listening to this instead. Again, make sure you're following or subscribing so that you know when a new episode is launched. And so, if you're not familiar yet, because we really truly just moved over to the E360 platform earlier this month. So, if you're not familiar with Make Mental Health Matter, my name is Kelly. I am the host of the show, and I talk to guests on Monday who are mental health professionals, experts, advocates, or those that have experienced a mental health challenge. And then on Wednesdays for Warrior Wednesdays, we talk to guests. I always say we, it's me. I talk to guests who are warriors. They have been through an experience and they're here to really share their story with you because you never know what story you're going to hear that you can identify with that may help you get from this place of despair into hope. So that is the whole purpose of Warrior Wednesdays. And without further ado, because I tend to talk a lot at the beginning, I'm going to bring up my incredible guest for the show today, Curtis Jones. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah, so basically, I grew up in Northern Virginia. I was an Olympic development soccer player. I was second in the state for track, and I love sports and kind of flourished with them. And I left home with big dreams and high expectations, heading off to college. And when I got there, what ended up happening was I got three stress fractures in my shin, and these three stress fractures in my shin, they triggered me or caused me to go into this deep dark depression. I mean, this is way back in 1998. And so, nobody was really talking about depression back then. I mean, maybe psychologists were, but it wasn't like today. Depression, anxiety, mental health, all these things, they're all buzzwords. Even if you've never been depressed, you know someone who has, or you've heard about it on TV or social media or whatever. But back then, I had no idea what was even happening to me. And so, before I knew it, just within a couple of months' time of after school started, and I got this injury and I wasn't able to, do what I love doing. It just pulled me into this deep dark depression where it was hard to get out of bed. It was hard for me to talk. I lost a lot of my friends in that process, and my dad even asked me if he needed to put me into a psychiatric home. I had dropped out of school with a 1.8 GPA. I'm living at home, and it was just really, it was really hard for me to cope with everything that was going on, and just felt like I had no direction. So that's kind of like how it all started. Um, I don't know if you want me to keep going or.
It's totally up to you. Yeah, I mean, like I was telling you earlier, it's really about your story and this journey that you've traveled because I really want people to understand. I mean, like you said, we didn't talk about mental health as much as we do today, but it's
Uh-huh.
still one of those very taboo issues. You maybe don't want somebody to think you're crazy or those words that people tend to use. So, the other thing that I know that I would love for you to expand upon is oftentimes people think of depression and they think maybe like a couple of months or maybe a year, but not necessarily 9 years. So I'd love for
Right.
you to share a little bit more about that also.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two phases to my depression. The first part of my depression, the first 3 years, this depression was not small. Like I was saying, my dad asked me if he needed to put me into a psychiatric home. I was really debilitating, hard to get out of bed, all these things. But then, it kind of shifted into, that lasted for 3 years, where I just kind of felt lost and hopeless, and I was so paranoid. I mean, that was one of the biggest things. I was so paranoid that I literally thought that the whole world was like a conspiracy against me. Like it was really dark, it was deep, and it was hard to function. So anyway, I got a little bit of counseling that kind of boosted me out of my depression, and enough for me to be able to function in society again. And as soon as that happened, I ended up saying, well, I can still remember the day I was at home, and I was sitting on my couch, and I was just asking myself, man, what am I gonna do? Like, okay, I don't want to go to school. I'm glad that I've dropped out of school, and now I'm home, but I don't want to be living here with my parents for the rest of my life either. Like, what am I going to do? And so I just happened to like turn on the TV, and as I turned on the TV, the first thing that came on was this commercial, "Let the journey begin," with the Navy. And so I almost like took that as a sign, like this is what I'm supposed to do next. I didn't even question it. I went and got my keys. I got into the car. I drove straight to the recruiting office, and I said, "What do you have for me?" And they said, if you ever want to go back to school, you can. If you ever want to go back to school, we'll help you pay for school. You can travel around the world with us, which is something that I had really wanted to do. While I was in college, I wanted to be like an exchange student, or go travel around the world and see different cultures and stuff like that. And then the last thing that he said was, we'll teach you a trade, and I ended up becoming this X-ray tech, and a combat medic in the Navy, was just called like a corpsman with the Marines. And so I didn't even ask my parents. I just signed right there on the line. I was probably like the easiest recruit that they ever had. There was no convincing that needed to be done at all. So anyway, I go home. I tell my mom, Mom, Dad, I'm going into the Navy, and they're like, 2 weeks ago you could barely even get out of bed. Like now you're ready to, conquer the world. Like we're gonna support you no matter what. But they were just shocked. And so I end up, I did a little bit of training for a couple of months, and then I woke up on the day that I was supposed to go into the Navy, and my dad calls me up, and he says, "Hey, are you still going in?" And I'm like, "Dad, you were in the military for 20 years. Like, I'm still going in. We've been planning this for 2 months. The recruiters are on their way over to the house right now." And he's like, "Why don't you turn on the TV?" And I turned on the TV, and that was the day that the planes hit the towers. And so here I was, just trying to get some extra money for college, and get some discipline, and trying to travel the world. And, the universe was like, "Nope, just joking. We're at war," And so, I said, well, I felt at that time that this was my way out of, this was a fresh start for me. And I knew that this was like, a great opportunity for me. So I just did it. I went into the Navy, and all that, got to travel around the world with the Navy. I lived in Okinawa, Japan, and I was in Korea, and I went to Guam and Iwo Jima, and I got stationed in California. We went to Arizona, I went to Kuwait, I went to Iraq, and I got to go all around the world and meet a lot of cool people and all that. But while I was in the military, I met a mentor out in California who really understood this depression that I was still experiencing for another 6 years. So the first 3 years were deep, dark, and debilitating. I could not even function in society. And then the second 6 years, the second phase, I could function in society, but inside I would have these highs and lows. Like one moment I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world. The next moment I feel like this is the worst day of my life. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And I was able to hide a lot of this from some people, but there were just days where I couldn't hide it. And so after working with that guy for about 2 years, I had left, and I was going to school again. I not dropped out, but I had gotten out of the military, and I started going back to school again. And on my way home from class, this was the day that I broke the 9 years of depression. So basically, on my way home from class, a girl stopped me and she said, "Curtis, I just saw you like 30 minutes ago, and you seem like you were having like an incredible day. Now I see you, and it looks like, somebody shot your dog. Like, what could have possibly happened in the last, 20 minutes, 30 minutes that took you from here to here, And now looking back, I can just honestly say, nothing happened on the outside, nothing happened. But on the inside, my depression came back. It was that simple. And so I was walking home from class that day. I still remember it so vividly. And I was in the parking lot getting ready to go up into my dorm. And I was talking with myself, and I was basically saying, man, I've gotten some really good counseling, 2 years of really good counseling. And, I know there has to be a way out of this depression. I don't know what it is, but I know I'm going to find it. And this thought just came to me that said, why don't you try not judging yourself for 24 hours? Like, not for a year, not for a month, not for a week, just for one day. Why don't you try not judging yourself just for 24 hours? Because, and for me, what it was like was, let's say I'm having this conversation here with you, Kelly, and, I think that everything is going fine. And then I walk away from the conversation, and my mind starts saying, oh, why'd you say that to Kelly? You shouldn't have said that. You should have said this. And so, I beat myself up for a day or a week or a month or till whenever I see you again. And then as soon as I see you again, I go and say to you the exact thing that my mind was telling me to say that would make everything better. I think everything's cool. And then I walk away from the conversation, and my mind says to me, oh, why'd you use that tone of voice with Kelly? You shouldn't have said it like that. You should have said it like this. So no matter what I did, the bar was always way too high. And I could never reach this bar, no matter how good I performed, no matter how good I did whatever. I would always put the bar way over my head to a place that I couldn't reach. And so this was constantly communicating to me that that I was, not enough, or, that I was always wrong, or whatever. These kinds of thoughts were always going through my head. And this is what was a big part of my depression, was these self-judgmental thoughts. So when my intuition spoke to me and said, why don't you try not judging yourself for 24 hours, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. And I don't know if it's going to work or not, but basically, if a thought comes to me that I really, that's really, beating myself up for my past, or saying I'm not going to make it in the future, or, or saying whatever it might say, basically, I'm going to let that thought come, and I'm going to let the thought go. Now I know that this was a form of mindfulness. I didn't really know what mindfulness was. But this was a form of mindfulness where we separate ourselves from our thoughts, and and we distance ourselves from our thoughts, and then we're able to choose the thoughts that we want to choose, rather than letting these thoughts take over our life and take over our mind and all these things. So when I woke up the next day, I felt so good that I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this for one more day. And so, that experiment worked so effectively for me that the first day of that experiment became the last day of my 9 years of depression. And now, this May, next month, will be 16 years of being free from that 9 year depression.
That is amazing. And I know like you and I have had this conversation, and when you shared that with me, I mean honestly, of course I live in the mental health space on a daily basis, and I talk and show people how to recognize the signs and symptoms of depression or a mental health challenge. And
Yeah.
I tell people that anything over 2 weeks is generally when you want to go talk to a professional. And to think that you were in this space for 9 years, although you said that the 6 years was pretty functional for you, it still is the space that like almost feel a little bit stuck. Well, you
Yes.
do feel stuck, right? Not a
Incredibly.
little.
Incredibly. Yeah. 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 I was incredibly stuck, and especially in the first 3 years, those were just outrageously debilitating. I just could not get out from under the weight that was just like dragging me down. And then even the second 6 years, like I was constantly arguing with myself, I was constantly battling myself, I was constantly putting myself down, and I had no idea how to get out of it. But I remember that my mentor used to say to me, and he's gone now. He was much older than me. He died at the age of like 97 on the first day of 2017. But I can remember that he used to say to me, Curtis, you have it with your mind, but the self-love that he had been kind of exploring with me and sharing with me, like how to love myself and how to give myself compassion and all these things. He said, you have this with your mind, but you got to get it in your heart, and you have to get it way down deep in your guts. And what I didn't realize until after he was gone was that the guts is our place of courage. It's our place. It takes a lot of courage to actually face yourself, and to actually accept yourself for who you are, and simply to just be who you are when everyone is vying for you to be this version of you, or this version of you, or this version of you. For you to be a unique entity in the world that's not dominated or controlled by anyone else's opinions, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And so this was on that day, I felt like I was able to get this message. I wasn't just not judging myself. That's what I was doing practically, but on the other end, what I was doing was I was learning how to love myself for who I am. And once I got that, and this is what I teach my clients, is that once you know how to love yourself unconditionally, there's absolutely, it's like the depression, the anxiety, they have nothing left to hang on to anymore. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, like you were saying, is that it was this process. It didn't just, I mean, obviously it was like 9 years, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I get it, right? Like you're
Right.
probably consistently hearing it over and over and over. And
Right.
you're like, there's something, like, at least I know there's something that I'm missing. I don't know what it is that I'm missing, but I'm missing something. And
Yes.
then all of a sudden it's like download, which is
Yes.
really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's interesting because in many ways I do have this overnight success story as far as depression, but being realistic about it, no, it's not that simple. Like you said, it took me 9 years. It took me 9 years to get to this point where I was able to, actually embody the self love that my mentor had been teaching me, and I had gotten a little bit earlier. I had gotten a little bit earlier on in my journey, but I just didn't know how to. I didn't know how to process it myself. So that initially got me out of the deep dark depression, but it wasn't until I learned how to process it myself, and then like my mentor used to always say, your heart has to be saturated, like saturated with unconditional love. And your soul has to have the opportunity to experience that love. And your mind has to have an opportunity to analyze and really understand it and analyze that love. And then you'll have the capacity to actually not only embody that love for yourself, but also to be able to give that kind of unconditional love to other people who are in your life as well. And so, that was the biggest part of what I got from my mentor. Is I felt like I learned how to relate to myself, and I learned how to relate to others in such a way that that I wasn't bound anymore by those relationships. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, so I have studied neurolinguistic programming, and we talk a lot about the gut and safety and compassion, that all it comes from your gut, like your identity and all of those things. So it completely made sense when you were talking about like it has to be deep down into your gut and your soul. And I
Yeah.
mean, you really have to learn, which I think on surface level, as humans, we oftentimes dip our toes into self compassion, and we know how to do it for other people, but we don't necessarily
Right.
how to do it for ourselves. And
Right.
we can always nitpick and find those little things that drive us crazy about ourselves, but yet we can share. And I'm totally guilty of this. So, I can share with people how to be self compassionate, but I, what you just said in my brain, I'm like, do I know how to do it myself? So it is
Right.
interesting. But what
Yes.
I would love to do, so we're gonna do a quick commercial, and then we're gonna come back and dive into that a little bit more, because I think it's really interesting, this self compassion component and the techniques that you have used moving forward from 9 years. So
Okay. Sounds good.
we'll be right back. And like that, we're back. So if you just happened to join us, we are talking to Curtis, and he is giving us the download of his story, really of his journey through depression that lasted 9 years. And I want to shift to what we were just kind of talking about, is this self-compassion, and or any tools or techniques that you have really used. And I know that you also work with clients. So, other than having that moment that you're like, I'm not going to judge myself for 24 hours, which that's huge just in itself. And having the thought process to even say that to yourself. But other than that day when you're like, oh, I'm doing 24 hours. Oh, this is working. Maybe I'll do it a little bit longer. What other tools or techniques have you really embodied to move forward and not go back to that depression?
Okay, that is an awesome question. A lot of times people ask me, what are some things that they can do, that they can do in order to, help them to move through depression or anxiety or panic or any of those things. And I work with people now. People come to me with 30 years of depression. 30 years of depression, and I'm able to get them, and they've been to psychologists, they've been to psychiatrists, they've been on the medications, they've been in and out of psychiatric hospitals for being on suicide watch and all these things. And then, after a few months of working with me, they're able to get out of depression, even though they might have had it for, 20 years, 30 years, 12 years of panic attacks, 20 years of panic attacks. And what I always tell people is the biggest key, and this is the framework that I use to take everyone through. The biggest key right here is these three things: radical acceptance of self, radical acceptance of your situation, and radical acceptance of others. Okay, if you can learn how to do these three things, radical acceptance of self, this is what happened to me that day. I was not accepting myself. My whole life, I had a lot of shame. I had Kelly, I didn't share this with you, but I had my first sexual experience was at just 5 years old. 5 years old, right? I had a lot of shame that was around that, for all of my life. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I just hid behind sports for a lot of my life, and that just kind of took the forefront. But then when sports was taken away and I no longer had that, I had another, sexual experience in my teens that led to the girl that I was with getting pregnant, and then we decided to get an abortion. Right? So I had tons of shame that I had been carrying. So it wasn't just these little conversations like that I was having with people. There were decades of shame that I had been carrying around. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I share this with my clients all the time. So on that day when I learned how to stop judging myself, and that day was a day that I declared to myself, "Hey, buddy, you're okay. It doesn't matter that." I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but just hear me out. It doesn't matter that you've been through this. It doesn't matter that you're different from other people. It doesn't matter that you've had different experiences from other people. Those things make you unique. Those things make you the person that you are, right? And so on that day, I was able to listen to that voice that said, it's okay that you're unique. It's okay that you're different. It's okay that all these different things. And that's how I began this journey of radical acceptance of self. So that's one, right? So a lot of times people come to me and that's their biggest issue, is they're not able to accept themselves. But then there's other people who maybe it's like their situation, like, there's always, there's the old recovery saying that says, teach me, or, give me the strength to change the things that I can change, the acceptance to accept the things that I cannot change, and then the wisdom to know the difference, right? There's some things that we just can't change no matter what, and there's always things that we can change. It's not like a defeatist attitude, but I have this saying that says, one of the greatest keys to happiness is learning how to accept reality while stretching forth to create a new one, right? So on the one side, we have to be able to accept reality for what it is, those things that we just can't change. On the other hand, there is a power within us to be able to change certain things, and we don't need to have a completely defeatist attitude where we're just like, fine, I'll just accept this. Fine, I'll just accept this. No, you got to find the balance between the two. You have a power to make tons of changes in your life, but there's always going to be things that are out of your control. And one of the most beautiful things on this topic that I've heard was from a lady named Byron Katie, who came out of her own depression. She wrote a book called Loving What Is. Just think about the title of that book alone. Loving what is. Most of us spend our lives hating what is, trying to fix what is, trying to change what is. But her whole book, as she has this process that she takes people through, and one of the things that she teaches is that there's three kinds of business. There's my business, anything I think, say, or do. There's other people's business, anything they think, say, or do. And then there's the universe's business, which is anything which is basically out of human control, right? If it's raining today, the weather that's going on, the fact that Corona exists, all of these things are out of human control. There's nothing that we can do about them, right? All we can do is best deal with them the best that we can, right? But and then we think that other people's business and the universe's business is in our control, so we talk about it all the time. We try to manipulate it, we try to change it, we try to fix it. But basically what she's saying is we can eliminate two-thirds of all of our mental mess if we simply choose to focus on my business, which is the only thing that's in our control in the first place. Right? And so I teach people how to get their mental claws out of other people's business, right? And out of situations that they have no control over. And as that happens, again, it's like they become present with what is in their control, with themselves, with their emotions, with all that. This is not about pushing down our emotions or just pushing everything to the side and say, oh, I can't worry about that. No, it's about feeling the feelings and then choosing the ones that feel the best, right? So that's the second one, radical acceptance of our situation. And then the third one is radical acceptance of others. And what we don't understand a lot of time is that we have no idea how much stress we're putting on ourselves by being out of alignment with relationships that are in our life. We have no idea how much stress we are putting on not only ourselves, but on the other person and on the relationship in general by constantly trying to fix it, by constantly trying to change it, by constantly trying to change that other person. However, when we learn how to welcome them in the same way, like with like fearless welcome, right? And with like extravagant welcome and with unconditional love, like automatically they see something within us that is very attractive and they begin not to be repulsed by us anymore, but they begin to be very like magnetized because unconditional love is extremely attractive, right? Just think about the last time you were around somebody that was constantly judging you, that was constantly trying to fix you, that was constantly trying to change you. And what did it make you want to do, right? It puts us into fight or flight mode, right? However, when somebody just accepts us for who we are and really just, meets us on our own grounds and like there's nothing that we can do that they would shame us for, we're just like, man, you're my dog, like you're my people, like, it's so fun, like being around people like that, like it's so enjoyable, like it's so rich, the experience, right? And so this, I wrote a line one time that says basically, there is no key to good relationships. There's simply a well-worn welcome mat, right? And this doesn't mean that we just let people walk all over us, but it just means that a lot of times we go around looking for the key to relationships. But really, if we would just practice welcome with these people that we feel like we are in a bad relationship with, a lot of times this will heal a ton of those things, and they'll begin to reflect those things back to us. Because they're getting saturated again with this unconditional love. Now, as depressed people, a big danger is taking these kinds of statements and then really turning themselves into a doormat, and I'm completely against that. I'm all about boundaries, but that's a whole nother thing. Like, once you set proper boundaries with people who are abusing you, or people who are mistreating you, or people who are not willing or not able to give you the kind of respect that you deserve, that right there is another form of radical acceptance of others. But think back to, maybe you've heard this by Maya Angelou. She has this line that she shared with Oprah, that she said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time, right? And so when you see people constantly, walking all over you and all that, it's our jobs to put up a barrier and put up a boundary and say, not only a physical boundary, but also an emotional boundary. Where I say this to people all the time: don't let people who mess with your mind. I usually say a little bit stronger language than that, but like, don't let people who mess with your mind enter in to the door of your mind, right? Don't let people who mess with your mind enter into the door of your mind, because a lot of times we'll put up these physical boundaries and we'll get these people out of our lives. However, we won't let them out of our minds, and then they wreak havoc on our minds, even though they might be long gone, they might be thousands of miles away, or they might have already passed away, and we're still hearing their voices within us and letting them dictate our lives, even though they're nowhere even near our lives anymore. So these are the major three things: radical acceptance of self, radical acceptance of situation, and radical acceptance of others. I take people through the process of teaching them how to deeply embody these three things. And when that happens, the depression has nothing left to hang on to, and it really just disappears. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen very, very quickly.
That's amazing. One, I love the word radical.
Uh-huh.
For I don't even remember. We were like writing out goals in this event that I went to, and somebody said radical love, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that word. So radical, it just like invokes this emotion in my body that makes me really like happy and wanting to like really do it. Um,
Yes,
but
that's
I
what it's all
also,
about.
yeah, I love that you gave all of those too. What came up in my head is what I say or try to do most of the time is it about me or is it about them? And if it's about me, then maybe I need to explore something within myself that is potentially triggering
Yep.
myself and the reactions and whatever the situation is, like you were just talking. Or
Yep.
if it's about them, then I can just let it go. Like it's not my thing to hold on
Yes.
to.
Yep.
And I never understood that until I really started studying and knowing more about mental health and mindfulness and all of these things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that my energy and other people's energy really truly affects me because I used to be one of those people that wanted everybody to like me. I mean, I have
Right.
friends galore like all over the place. I mean, my husband's like, I can't even keep track of how many friends you have. But my with the friends that I had, like I really, really wanted them to like me. And
Uh-huh.
I got to a point that I was like, and I think it's after I really started finding my community and the people that really supported me and loved me for who I am versus who they thought I should be, which is a lot of what you talked about. And once I was inside this community, I realized that I could just be me and it's okay, and that I am valuable and I'm worthy and I can do all the things that I want to do without having to worry about what other people think about me. And it was almost like one day that it shifted, kind of like you were talking about, of like, I don't really care what people think about me.
That's it. That's it. That's
I
it.
I never thought that I would get to that point of like, whatever. Like you either like me or you don't like me, and if you do, great. If you don't, well, I don't know what to tell you. But
Yeah.
I
I could
know that
care
I still
less.
have a lot of work to do myself too. But I think I love all three of those points that you gave us, because I think that we all need to experience something different. And if we can shift our energy, shift our mindset, and really focus on us,
Yep.
that can significantly help our mental health and so many other things. So,
Yes.
and I didn't want to like give away all your secrets. So,
I share with people all the time. Even when it comes to the people that you love the most, like your family or your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, you have to have the you have self. People ask me like, what is self love? I don't even know. Like, give me a practical picture of self love. And what I tell them is, you have to love yourself so much that when people, let's say people want to walk out of your life, you can confidently say, you know what, I love myself and respect myself so much that, like, I want you to be in my life. I love you. I want you to be in my life. However, if you want to leave, there's the door. Like, I don't like I love myself so much that, you bringing me anything is really just a cherry on top. It's not, I've got everything that I need within myself. So, once you get to that level of what you were just talking about, like, how you started off being like, man, I really care what people think about me and all that, and then something shifts and you get to this place of really, like, self-confidence and self-love and all these things. Then you can really just truly, like, relax and simply enjoy things as they come and enjoy things as they go. I have this another saying that says we the mental waves, the basically something like, the mental waves that we send out are the only ones that others will surf back to our shores, right? It's like, if we're constantly putting out, like, that these people are above us or that we're dependent on them, then people will come back with that energy of coming back above us. And once we send out a different mental voice, or a different mental, a different mental wave, mind wave, then the people who like us will gravitate to us, and the people who don't they'll skip town.
yeah.
So
No, that's
yeah.
a good, you like give me like chills when you said that, because I also, and I still have a lot that I know I need to work on personally, and I have like, you're never perfect, right? Like, nobody's ever
Exactly.
perfect, and
Ever.
these are going to be things that you will constantly be working on as you grow and develop and all those things. But the, like you were saying, the people above you, right? I
Hmm.
have, for whatever reason, always felt that I was really small. And I would, even in my posture, in my mannerisms, and how I talk to people, I very much put people on pedestals.
Mm.
And actually, like, one of um the masterminds that we were in together, I
Uh-huh.
that was said over and over and over, everybody poops, right? All of us are
Yes.
human. All of
Right.
us go to the bathroom. All of us eat food. All of us go to our house. And even those people that we quote unquote put on pedestals, or that are celebrities, or whatever their status might be, they're humans.
Yep.
And they have a lot of the same insecurities. And why I never thought of that way
Yeah.
until like, until that was said to me, I'm like, oh, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And from that moment on, I was like, whatever, I know so and so or whomever. Like, it wasn't it's not as what's the word, that's, it's not as challenging to have
Yes.
conversations with those, I don't want to say those type of people. It's not a type of
Right.
people, but not putting people on a pedestal and not shrinking myself
Right.
because of a belief that has been running in the back of my head probably for generation or
Yep.
for a long time, right?
Yep.
Um so
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting too, is just understanding and the confidence piece. I
Yep.
didn't have a lot of confidence
Yep.
until I really stepped into what I call my power, and I do the superhero pose. Like
Oh,
that's
the
my
power posing. Yeah,
yes,
Amy Cuddy, right?
yeah. I love my power
Yes.
poses and
Oh yeah, the
my
Superman and
superhero.
Wonder Woman and all
Yeah,
that, right? Yeah, I do them too. Yeah, and they radically affect our energy. And just 2 minutes of doing those power poses a day, can radically change our brain structure and the neural pathways that are in our brains. And so I love what you said about perfection. Like, there was this there a big part of overcoming depression is really learning how to get comfortable with our own imperfections, right? Because we're constantly trying to do a lot of times we're constantly trying to do everything perfectly. We're constantly trying to do everything right, or not step on this person's toes or that person's toes, or and all these things, and we shrink down and get so small. And there is that quote by Marianne Williamson that talks about, we ask ourselves, who am I to be, who am I to be strong? Who am I to be wise? Who am I to be brilliant? Who am I to be whatever? And she says, actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. Like, it's okay for you to be the unique individual that you are. And you don't have to. The more transparent that we can be, the more we can actually embody this unconditional love in our imperfections. And we can talk about our imperfections without feeling like they're going to ruin us. Like, that was a big part of my depression. It was like, man, once people find out about this, once people find out about this part of my life, and this thing happened 15 years ago, right? But it's like, once people find out about this, like, I'm done, right? And so a big part of overcoming depression is really learning how to get real about our stories, and real about our experiences, and real about our imperfections, and real about our humanity. And as we do that, we can really be transparent, because there's nothing to fear once you know that there's absolutely nothing in the whole universe that can strip you away from this kind of unconditional love that we're talking about.
that's amazing. And I love the like the why can't you be, or why not me, right? Like that
Hmm.
whole, I can tell myself I shouldn't, or I can't, or whatever it is, but why not? Why not
Yes.
me? And
Yeah.
I've heard that recently too. And um, I just think it's very not clever. That's the word that popped in my head, but that's not the right word. But um, I think it's important to remind ourselves also, why not you? Why
Yeah.
not you being able to function? Why not you being able to be happy? Why not you being able to not have or experience anxiety, or not experience depression,
Yeah.
right? Like, why not? And
Yes.
it's going to take more, of course, soul searching, maybe working with Curtis or working with somebody else or whomever that might be, that can really help talk you through whatever is going on. But I do love that you gave all three pointers, and radical is the word.
That's the
um
word.
yeah, radical, because it is,
Radical acceptance.
it really exudes this energy of moving forward. I don't know, I just keep like moving forward
Yeah.
whenever I
Yeah.
think of radical. And
Uh-huh.
so I think that's amazing. But also, if people want to, because I so appreciate this conversation, I totally feel like somebody's going to identify with your story and really want to learn or follow you more, where can they do that?
Yes, so you can definitely find me on Facebook at Curtis Tyrone Jones, and also on Instagram the same way. My website is radiate new realities dot radiateNewRealities.com. as well. And get my book. It's called Guru in the Glass. It's on Amazon, and you can find it there. It's called Guru in the Glass, and it is very helpful for your journey through depression.
Awesome. And this is Guru in a Glass, right?
In the glass, Guru in
The
the
glass.
glass.
Oh,
Yeah,
see, I spelled it wrong.
it's all
Guru
good.
in we're gonna get it right. Guru in, because I can change these on here. All right, let's put it up. Guru in the Glass.
Yes.
Dun, 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 yay. Awesome. Yeah. So go get his book, follow him. If you want to learn more information about radical self acceptance and radical love and all the amazing things that we talked about. Thank you so much, Curtis. I am
You're
so
welcome.
glad that you were able to come on. So thank you. I really greatly appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. I loved it. It was awesome.
All right, y'all. Oh my gosh, that was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter, where on Wednesdays it is the theme of Warrior Wednesdays. I say we, I don't know. I guess I have a mouse in my pocket. I don't know. I bring guests on who share their story and their experience, whatever they have lived through, or a challenge, a trauma, whatever it might be. Their story about their journey and into that place of hope. Because I know in today's society, we just need more hope and more stories that we can identify with and really, truly understand how we can help ourselves and the power of resources and tools and people and all those things. And my goal is to really just bring you those stories so that if you identify with the guests and it's something that you're like, wow, I mean, like that download, like we were talking about, all of a sudden you get this download and you're like, wow, I've heard that a million times, but now it clicks. That's what we're looking for. So again, this show, Make Mental Health Matter, it airs 2 times per week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for the theme of Make Mental Health Mondays. I need to change the names or something because too many M's. Mental Health Mondays, where I talk to guests who are professionals or advocates in the mental health space or those with lived experiences. And Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for Warrior Wednesdays, where we have guests who share their stories. And as I told you at the top, make sure if you're not following that you mash down the subscribe or follow button and or share this and or subscribe, do all the things. You never know who this information might be helpful for. And lastly, join us on Monday for the next episode, and I will see you then. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.